Hi everybody, and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for checking us out. As we take a look at this week's edition of Out of the Gate and what's on tap, you're going to notice it's a turf-centric weekend all across North America. DRF handicapper Mike Beer and I are going to take a look at Saturday's feature race at Keeneland, the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. We'll also look at two major Grade 1 races at Woodbine on Sunday, the E.P. Taylor Stakes for fillies and mares and the Canadian International, Sunday's DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day. Nicole Russo, J.K., they've got you covered with the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. We've got best bets, horses to watch, and in Craig Milkowski's Timeform U.S. Spotlight, he'll talk about the challenges of being a speed figure maker. Let's break out of the gate. We begin out of the gate as we do each and every week with our Horse Watch segment. 3 of our Horse Watches came back to win last week, some of them at good prices. Remember, you can head over to drf.com and create your free Horse Watch email notification system. Very, very easy, drf.com Horse Watch. Mike Beer, who's it going to be this week?
I'm going to go with a 2-year-old. I'm not going to go with the obvious 2-year-old. Montauk was pretty impressive at Belmont on Saturday for Todd Pletcher. I'm going to go with a different 2-year-old, though. Down at Keeneland, a 2-year-old by Into Mischief caught my eye named Tiz Mischief. This is his 3rd career start at Keeneland, but it's his first start around 2 turns. His first 2 starts, I thought he ran well both times. This is his first start around 2 turns. He did a lot of good things in this race, I thought, Dan. Back off the pace, over inside for a lot of this running behind horses. He gets clear right here about mid-stretch. And I like the way this horse finishes and comes and gets this horse on the lead here. He really finishes with a flourish in this race. I thought this was a nice step forward for a 2-year-old who just may want distance, and he's really headed the right way here as we get to the end of the year.
Really blew by that pace setter. Once he got into the clear, that was a striking finish to be sure. I went with a 2-year-old as well at Keeneland on opening day. Mark Casse won the Alcibiades, but I wonder if he has a stronger 2-year-old filly prospect in a maiden winner in the opening race. Let's go to that race right now and take a look at this 2-year-old filly named G.O. Game. This is her 3rd lifetime start, and being a half-sister to Isotherm by Gio Ponte, you would think that maybe turf or synthetic would be what she wants to do, but this is her 3rd race, her first start on dirt around 2 turns, and she just runs away and hides in a time for the mile and a 16th that was actually faster than the Grade 1 Alcibiades. This was the maiden race that Cassie's Valadorna won last year en route to a spot in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. It'll be interesting to see if Cassie decides to take the plunge with this lightly raced G.O. Game for the Breeders' Cup. If not, though, I think she does have some stakes potential. Let's get to some handicapping. Lots of turf races this weekend on Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for Saturday's DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day, the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup for 3-year-old fillies on the turf at a mile and an 1/8. And you can access free Formulator Pass performances for this race by heading over to the Race of the Day event page on DRF.com. And for expanded stakes previews of most of the graded stakes races all weekend long, please visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We cover each horse in great detail. Mike, New Money Honey, the number 11, one of 2 in here for trainer Chad Brown. She really, over the spring and into the summer, assumed the mantle of the leading 3-year-old turf filly in the country, highlighted by this big performance in the Belmont Oaks.
Yeah, she ran really well in this race. This is her most recent turf start. This is going 1.25 miles, too, which doesn't really have to be her best distance, but she got the kind of trip that she allows herself to get good tactical speed, track in the pace, and she's just going to take it over here in the stretch and drive clear of this field. That is her stablemate Uni down on the rail in those yellow silks, and she's going to run a good 3rd in this race in her own right. She's back in this field as well. Chad holding a very strong hand here, but I do think he has the horse to beat with New Money Honey. Post 11 or not, she has the kind of tactical speed that allows her to overcome that those kinds of things, and I just think she's the horse to beat in this race.
As we discussed in the expanded stakes preview, there is not a lot of pace expected. New Money Honey in that sort of situation at this distance, 3 starts back at Belmont, was able to get to the front. You have to think that Javier Castellano is going to go to the lead. Now, she tried dirt last time out. We're not going to hold that race against her. Did the fact that she didn't run well at Keeneland in her lone start this year, does that bother you somewhat? It can be somewhat of a horse-for-course turf course.
Yeah, it's true. I don't necessarily like to see horses who have run at Keeneland before and didn't run well, and that was, I thought, certainly the case with New Money Honey. On the other hand, she was off the layoff there. That was her first start as a 3-year-old and first since the Breeders' Cup, and it's not like she got some kind of perfect trip in the race. I didn't really care for the trip she got in that race either. She just didn't look that sharp to me. She's improved since then. I'm going to not hold that race against you here and give her another chance over this turf course.
Now, while New Money Honey was preparing for the Grade 1 Alabama on dirt at Saratoga, Proctor's Ledge made hay with 2 graded stakes races at the Spa. You like her in the spot.
Yeah, listen, and maybe you're right. Maybe it was as simple as, this filly getting away from horses like New Money Honey, who was looking for different spots. But I really feel like she's just a filly who's really improving from start to start. And as you look at, her most recent race here at Saratoga, where she just swings up on the outside and she comes flying through the stretch. I mean, this is a really fast final quarter of a mile in here, and that's Uni, who was unfortunately behind her and just cannot catch Proctor's Ledge at the end. This is back-to-back really strong performances for this filly who's really improving right now, and I just love her tactical speed. That she can get any kind of a trip in a race, and she's perfectly drawn towards the inside, and I'm hoping she pulls the right trip in this race and maybe pulls off another little upside here.
Not only did she finish Uni in that race, she also was able to take the measure of the Keeneland-loving La Coronelle, who was also back for the Queen Elizabeth. I'm looking for a European invader to upset the apple cart. That's the number 7, Wuheda. We're going to take a look at her most recent start. This is against Group 1 company at France, really the highest level of racing. She's in those familiar Godolphin blue silk. She's in and among horses. She's going to come out. She's going to take her shot in between, and she finishes 4th in a blanket photo. This is a filly that began her career last year with a tremendous amount of promise, winning her first 2 starts, including a Group 1 in France. She was unfortunately injured after that race. It took her a long time to come back, and while she hasn't won this year at 3, she has given honest accounts of herself. And I think, and you asked me this question in the expanded stakes preview, I think that the fillies that she faced in this spot are just as good, if not slightly better, than the North American-based ones that she's going to be facing on Saturday in the Queen Elizabeth II. So I'll go with Wuheda in the QE2. Nicole Russo is also going to look at the Queen Elizabeth Challenge Cup at Keeneland on Saturday, only from a pedigree standpoint. Let's go to that segment right now.
Hi guys, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate from Lexington, where Keeneland's feature race on Saturday is the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup for 3-year-old fillies on the turf. The race always draws a solid international presence, including just last year when Hawksmoor hit the board in her first U.S. start. So let's take a look at some of the international bloodlines that you might not be as familiar with in this year's renewal to help you in your evaluation of some of these fillies, especially those making their U.S. debuts. Wuheda is one of a couple in here who is making her U.S. debut. She's a Group 1 winner in France. She is by the international young standout Dubawi, the best son that Dubai Millennium left behind his only crop. We're starting to see more and more of Dubawi's runners here as he gains more international prominence. He obviously sires classy turf routers, but they can run on dirt too. His most well-known son in the United States is Mubtahij. Wuheda's Dam is also a Group 1 winner, and she's by Singspiel. I think people have really forgotten this horse a little bit in the 2 decades since he ran. He was a wonderful globe-trotting racehorse and a really underrated stallion as well. And in this category, he's the broodmare sire of greater Group 1 winners like Helmet, Lamato, Suédois, who just won the Shadwell Mile at Keeneland, and more. I love this cross of Dubawi over Singspiel, such a classy turf route type pedigree. Unforgettable filly, winner of the German 1000 Guineas, is also making her U.S. debut. She's by the elusive quality stallion Sepoy, who you're watching here in his biggest win in the renowned Golden Slipper in Australia. I think he might throw more miler types, more stamina on the bottom side of Unforgettable Filly's pedigree to back it up. She's out of an Oasis Dream Mare whose dam is half to Beverly D winner Fire the Groom, a productive broodmare whose runners included Stravinsky and Moscow Ballet, very familiar names. This is a classy family, adding some depth to back up a rising young sire. Now, we've got two runners in the field who have been in the U.S. for a bit already from the first crop of young Irish sire Sir Prancelot. Beau Recall and Madame Dancelot, you're watching them here finishing a close second and third respectively to rival Dream Dancing and the Grade 1 Del Mar Oaks. Both run for the same connections who wanted to see how offspring by this stallion would run on firm turf over here in the U.S. That's the reason a lot of European types come over here. So if you're doing your homework, that might tell you something about the future of this young stallion. Plenty of good turf action this weekend. We're going to take a quick break on Out of the Gate, and when we come back, the team is going to take you up to Woodbine to look at some more of this weekend's stakes.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. 2 Grade 1 stakes races, 4 graded stakes overall at Woodbine on Sunday. Let's look at the field for the E.P. Taylor Stakes, one of those 2 Grade 1s on the turf. This race at 1.25 miles for fillies and mares. For expanded stakes previews, please visit video.drf.com or our Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. The number 3 Quidura, probably the leading light based in North America for trainer Graham Motion, but the morning line favorite in here, Mike, comes from overseas, and that is the number 6, Nezwa. We're going to look at her race 2 starts back, the Pretty Polly Stakes, and I really like the way she stormed on home.
Yeah, she really finishes up pretty well in this race. You know, worth pointing out that she's, in a lot of ways, she had the real run of the race in here. There was a pretty good pace going on in front of her. The pace center eventually got out of the way here, and this filly, who sat a nice trip, I mean, she comes through between right here. I like the way she settles it, though, Dan. She's going to go to a wrong lead, but it does not matter in this race. She just storms away from this field at the end. Really, really impressive performance for a filly. She's just come back much improved as a 4-year-old.
You're absolutely right. She has come into her own this year, and she has raced once since then, and we won't hold that race against her. She was against the super filly Enable. She tried very, very hard. Not a lot of horses are getting to Enable at this time, but she ran well. She's 5-2 on the morning line. Arguably, she's the horse to beat. But Mike, I think you want to go somewhere else in here, and it's another European entrant, another horse that 2 starts back ran very well at the highest level overseas.
Yeah, this is a very tough race. There are a lot of different ways to go, and I just sort of felt like maybe I would look for a little bit of a better price. I think Nezwa maybe really is the horse to beat. Her races, her recent races anyway, are very good, but I liked Blonde Me. I like the way she's come back this year. We have a video of her race 2 starts back. Her last race is a total throwout where she had big trouble in a Group 1 race in France. This is a race 2 starts back. I think she runs a really good second here to a nice filly in Winter. She can't quite get to her, to that filly at the end of this race, but this is a good runner-up performance for a now 5-year-old mare. She's another one, Dan. She's come back better this year, and I think getting stretched out in distance may have had a lot to do with it. They kept her mostly to a mile throughout last year, and it didn't really work that well for her. Going longer this year, she's really improved. I like this effort from her. I think she fits pretty well in this race.
Like Nezwa, she has prior experience shipping all across the world. She raced in North America a couple of times as a 3-year-old filly, and she actually did quite well, so the shipping shouldn't be a problem. The addition of Lasix should work well for Blonde Me, and she might be a good price because you mentioned the most recent race being an utter throwout. She was hampered by all sorts of traffic issues and was basically eased. Don't take that race at face value on the past performances. Now, my selection in here, also a European runner, that's Rain Goddess. Now, she's raced in North America, but her race in the Beverly D, I have to admit, wasn't very good. She seemed a little bit cold on the board. She prompted the pace, and she was just flat late. She returned to Europe. She won her first start back, and then last time out, she ran this race. I believe it was the Blandford Stakes, and you're going to see she's kind of in behind horses. She's the kind of filly that can work out trips. She's tactical. She's not like a lot of these European horses that don't break well and are really at the mercy of pace and race luck, but she's still in behind in the straight. And some of these other jocks you see, they're riding, and Rain Goddess, her jock really can't get into her just yet, still looking for a seam. Now there's a seam, and she's going to split, and she's going to finish evenly behind an impressive winner who is winning this race for the second straight year. Rain Goddess has been an underachiever for most of her career. I believe she only has 2 wins, one of them a 50-to-1 chance in her career debut. But I do like her tactical speed, and she has run well in Group 1 races overseas. We'll see if Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore can work their magic with the number 7, Rain Goddess. Now let's go to the Colts for the Canadian International. We got a good cast of turf horses assembled for Sunday's Grade 1 Canadian International at Woodbine. Let's take a look at them right now. You got European flavor. Heck, it is the International after all. A nice field of turf runners. And for expanded stakes previews, please visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube page, where we cover most of the graded stakes races this weekend in their entirety. And there's the number 9, Erupt. Junior Alvarado has the mount, 7-2 on the morning line, now under the tutelage of Graham Motion. We know Erupt because he won this race last year. And Mike, as we take a look at this race, I love the acceleration. This isn't your European grinding type horse. He accelerates when asked the question.
Yeah, he really did pick it up nicely here when they asked him. Now, he also had a very nice trip in this race. The pace wasn't fast. He sat right up there, and he really did have something left here in the stretch when they asked him the question. He was much the best in this race. Idaho, who's back this year, was also in this race. He's sort of, trying to race on from the back of the pack here, not really doing that much at the end of this race. But if Erupt can come back and just, maybe replicate that performance this year, I suppose it'll be very tough to beat once again.
What do you think of his form this year? We saw him in the Sword Dancer last time out. I thought all in all, he got a very good trip, tracking a pretty solid pace, and he just lacked the punch. Maybe all he needs is Motion and Lasix, because as we saw in the stakes preview, that's a very powerful formulator factor.
Yeah, it really has been a good move for Motion. Trainer change, adding Lasix, especially with the European imports. It really works well for them. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, though, about this horse's recent form. It's not great. Not only didn't he run that well in the Sword Dancer at Saratoga, his race prior to that was just about a disaster back over in Europe. So we'll see if he can bounce back to one of his good races here.
Erupt and Idaho are going to be the most fancied of the European runners on the tote board. But you have a Euro that's in sneaky good form. Let's talk a little bit about Chemical Charge.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if this horse could maybe up his game. He might have to up his game a little bit here to go with the top 2 horses that we've already talked about. But I was wondering if this horse might be able to do it. He's actually in very good form this year over in Europe, and he just wants every bit of this 1.5 miles. We have his most recent race that we could show you. It's a prep race for this, and it's on the synthetic track, but it's also over 1.5 miles. He was the favorite here. He was supposed to win, but you see him sort of trapped in there behind horses all through the stretch run. And there's a point here deep in the stretch where it just sort of looks like, well, it's only a prep race anyway. He's not going to be able to win from here, but he's going to switch clear here. Not an easy thing to do, to switch out from behind horses very late in the game, and he's really going to accelerate at the end, and he actually will get up to win this race. The interesting thing about this performance too, Dan, is if you go back to the Hardwick Stakes a couple of starts ago when he was on turf and he was beaten by Idaho, he had a very similar trip to this. Stuck on the inside, had to alter course late, was running again at the end. He could not get to Idaho that day, but I just sort of felt like maybe if he got a better trip on Sunday, maybe he could make it closer with a horse like Idaho. And I think he has a real chance to win this race.
What he showed in that race was a will to win, because you can't move sideways at the furlong pole and catch horses, and that's exactly what he did. That was a strong effort against a weaker field, but it should have him on tilt for this performance. And heck, maybe he's not completely exposed yet. He really wants this distance. Now, Idaho did beat him in that race, I believe, 3 starts back. Idaho then shipped to Saratoga, where it looked like he was going to try to cherry pick the Sword Dancer. And as we take a look at them swinging into the stretch, it looks like that Idaho was standing next to a white picket fence while it was being painted, and he got it all on him. He was just a washed out mess. Then he ended up battling for the lead with 31-to-1 shot Frank Conversation in a race where the pace completely collapsed. I'm not going to hold this race against Idaho at all, nor am I going to hold his subsequent outing, the Arc de Triomphe against the monstrous Enable against him. There might not be a lot of pace in this race. I'm not sure if Idaho is a star or not, but I think he's going to be in a good spot turning into the stretch. I'll give him a shot. He's 5-2 on the morning line. I have to admit, I'm not very enamored with that price, but I think that Idaho is going to give a lot better account of himself than what we saw when he was that washed out mess in the Sword Dancer. JK takes a closer look at Saturday's Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup, and you really want to watch Craig Milkowski's Timeform US Spotlight, where he talks about all the problems a figure maker has when coming up with his final number. Let's hit those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. We're going to head out to Keeneland. We're going to do things a little bit different this time. A lot of times we focus on multi-race bets. And I like focusing on multi-race bets with a lot of stakes races involved. I think stakes races give us the best insight into horses. We hear stories. We can look on DRF Inside Post and find out information about horses. And I think it's a little bit clearer picture than when you're looking at stakes races and maiden races that we find throughout our racing cards here in America normally. That's why I typically like to do multi-race bets that have a lot of stakes races involved. Keeneland, there's a big stakes race. The Grade 1 QE2. I have a really strong opinion in here, so I'm going to just give you an exacta to play in this situation. If you want to go ahead and take my exacta play and roll it into a trifecta, that's fine as well. We're going to start with a $100 budget. The first ticket's going to be a $6 exacta. We're going to key 2 horses on top and then use logicals in the second spot. So we're going to use the 2, Proctor's Ledge, who's my top pick in this race. I think that she's at least twice now, after her race 2 back and her last race, I said this is the best 3-year-old turf filly that we have here in America. So I'm going to stick with that. I think she'll run big in this spot. And then a horse that she beat 2 back, Uni, I think is probably the second best turf filly we have here in America. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the 2, 10 with the 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, 11. Those other horses that I'm going to use underneath are Dream Dancing, La Coronel, Wahida, who comes over for Charlie Appleby, and the 11, New Money Honey. I'm going to use those horses as logicals to run second to these 2 horses, but keep in mind, I used the 2 and the 10 in the second spot as well, because if it comes to 10, I want to make sure I have that as well in here, or if it comes 10-2. Like I said, it's a 10 combinations. I'm doing it for $6. It's a $60 ticket. Now I'm going to back wheel the same idea. I'm going to take the 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, and 11 and put those horses in first on top with the 2 and the 10. What I'm looking for here is to have the 2 and the 10 run second in this spot. But like I mentioned earlier, I have the 2 and the 10 in the first spot as well. If all goes well, and Uni and Proctor's Ledge round out the exacta, I'm going to have a $10 exacta. I'm going to do this ticket for $4. There's 10 combinations, $40 ticket. We're in for $100, and we have it both ways if it doesn't work out, with both of them being in the exacta. So as a reminder, again, the 2 tickets are $6 ticket, 210 with 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, 11. And then we also have a $4 ticket, 2, 6, 7, 10, 11 with 210. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Craig Milkowski, Chief Speed Figure Analyst for Timeform US. This week I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. Normally I analyze a race, but last week we had a little bit of controversy involving the Grade 1 Santa Anita Sprint Championship, a major prep for the Breeders' Cup Sprint coming up in 3 weeks, I guess it is by now. I've been known, I've identified some races with some big errors in the past. There was the Pacific Classic of that Game On Dude won, I believe it was 2014. And even this year, the Grade 1 Pegasus Cup at Gulfstream in the inaugural running, which was the richest race in the world up to that point. And I think it still is. There's a race in Australia coming up, which may be a little richer, I forget. But anyway, it was at that point, and I was able to identify it. People often ask me two questions about this. One, they want to know, how do I know there's an error or a problem during the race? And two, they want to know, how do you do it? How do you time the race? A lot of people think I just sit here and watch and hand time. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because I just don't think that's very accurate. It's okay in some methods, but you got to get a little more accurate than that for horse races. The first thing I noticed on Saturday, and what led me to investigate a little further, was some really badly timed races. The first race was one when the fractions popped up. The very first race of the day, as soon as the opening quarter mile came up, it was 24 and 0.69. And as soon as they came, anybody that follows Santa Anita knew there was an issue. Horses never go that slow in a sprint at Santa Anita. And the final time, all the fractions just didn't make a whole lot of sense. But one race doesn't, it can happen. Nothing's perfect. And I'm sure it was identified that it was wrong and later corrected. But then the seventh race happened, which actually was after the sprint, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that one was even worse. I came up with some bad fractions, a 26.53, which is like Arabian horse time, and just a really slow time, 1:16.53 final time, which is more like a 6.5 furlong time for Santa Anita. So clearly there was an issue with that. So those two races are what made me actually look at the sprint. Because when you looked at the sprint first time, you see the fractions, there were 22 flat, 45 flat, and then a 108 and change, which are really fast race. You would think, okay, that worked. But as a speed figure maker, I was trying to time the first couple races to get a more accurate reading, and I figured I may as well look at this one as well. And what I found, and one other thing to keep in mind is, I had tweeted out last week that, or might have been the same day, I don't remember, but the Santa Anita track has been playing really slow this meet. It's been slower than it's been than it was in the spring, and even all of last year it hasn't been this slow. So that 108 and 3/5 seconds, that was really an eye-popping performance if you believe the time. I mean, it's possible Roy H., the winner, would be the favorite or one of them off of that race. So that gets me to, how do I time the races? The first thing that I do is I download the replay of the race, and not all races are available for download. If you can't, there's some software out there you can record the replays and get just as good a quality as you can with a download. So I can time pretty much any race there is out there. And what I do is I go frame by frame and freeze the winner when he hits the finish line. And that's what I did for race 6. And then I note the time at the bottom of the video software, which in this case was 1:12, and I rounded to 0.28. Using that information, I took the final time of the race, which was 1:08.68, subtracted those two, and that meant that the race should have started, the official timing of the race, at the 3.6 second mark of the video. From there, there's a go to, and you put in the time in the software, and it jumps right to that point in the video. And you see the image that came up, and I highlight the 6 furlong pole. And my initial thought when I saw this was, well, they're clearly past the 6 furlong pole. But you have to be careful because you are looking at it from skewed angles. The video's obviously not square on the pole. So you can't just go by that. You kind of have to have a baseline. And that's what I do with all the tracks. In this case, I went and looked at all the stakes races that were run at 6 furlongs this year at Santa Anita. The one I'm going to show as an example is the Thor's Echo, which was run back on June 11th. And I did the same exact method that I did. And here you can see the horses are much closer to that 6 furlong pole using that same method. But so it looks like there was a problem. But to verify it, I not only did the Thor's Echo, I don't want to bore everybody to death and show them every sprint race that I recorded and timed, but every single one, there were 8 or 7 other ones in addition to these two, and they all look pretty much exactly like the Thor's Echo. The standout, the outlier, is clearly the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. From there is a matter of just, and then I put the two images together so you could see the difference at the same time. There's clearly a gap. Something happened that the timing didn't begin until well after the 6 furlong pole. The last part of this to figure out just how fast is, it can only approximate it, but what I do is keep backing up the video until the picture of the Santa Anita Sprint Championship matched the Thor's Echo, and I also did it with a couple other races. And the difference I got was exactly 0.50 seconds, or half a second. Now, half a second's pretty tough to identify. It's, with the naked eye, and easily if you're hand timing races, you can be off a half second. But it's not going to be the case with video. There is a little bit of a margin for error, maybe about 1/10 of a second at the most. It wouldn't be any more than that. And that 0.50, while it may not seem like much, that's quite a bit. To put it in speed figure terms, like for Bayer speed figures or my own Timeform US speed figures, you're talking 6 or 7 points of difference on time. So that's why these things are important. That's why we want to know what the times are when we're looking at speed figures. We want to be able to trust that they were done off an accurate clocking. So that's what I tried to do here. I know the buyers adjusted their speed figures. I caught this one right away, so I didn't have to adjust. I had it built in already, but you can be confident knowing that those speed figures are based on the real time and not what was published on the tote board. That's it for this week from Timeform US. Let's send it back to Dan in the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike Beer, NYRA analyst. You're going to Belmont Park.
Yeah, Pebble Stakes, race 9 Saturday at Belmont Park. Chad Brown is running 2. I feel like most of the money will probably go to his other horse, the Frankel filly Rubelinda, who's developed quite a following after only 3 starts. But Rubelinda's got to stretch out in this race. So we'll see if that really works for her. I like Chad's other horse in this race, number 3. Phase. This horse arrived from France earlier this summer to make her stateside debut at Saratoga. We can look at that race right now. I really felt like she didn't win this race, Dan, and she was the favorite in here. I think this filly ran a super race this day. Not only was this, at the time of the meet when you sort of had to be up close and on the rail on these turf courses that were carrying speed, but this horse just got absolutely loose on the lead on it. There stays in those green silks, splitting horses 2 different times in the stretch, and then still finishing at the end to make ground on this front-running winner at the end. I thought this filly ran really well, and I think it's worth pointing out that she arrived from France with group credentials. She was running in good races over there, and she was holding her own in those races. I think she's good, and I think she can beat her stablemate in this race.
It's the rare, out-of-the-gate, dueling best bet.
Oh, no.
I think we've put Rubelinda in the winner's circle because we're going to try to beat her at a short price. I'm going to try to do it with Party Boat. And I've been waiting for Party Boat to take a drop in class and a cutback in distance, and she's getting both in the Pebbles. Let's go back to her most recent run. It's at Saratoga, and these are very, very familiar names. Proctor's Ledge, Mike's top pick in the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth Challenge Cup on Saturday. Uni, who's also in that race. Loch Hornell, who's also in that race. Those are Grade 1 caliber fillies. And Party Boat was up on the pace. She took care of Coasted the Pace Setter, but she can't step with these horses late. They're just better, and this distance is just too far. Now she's going to get the class relief she wants. There's a little bit of pace, I think, in here to set her up. She doesn't have to be that close to the pace. It's nice to know that she's versatile, but I do like her cutting back to a mile, dropping in class. She's 5-1 on the morning line. That's Party Boat in the Pebble Stakes at Belmont. I was going to say Saratoga. You can follow us on Twitter. DRF TV at DRF Video, and of course all the latest news and notes from Daily Racing Form with the Daily Racing Form Inside Post Twitter page at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.